you wake up and there's nothing to talk about other than that Super Bowl. And they're like, hold on a second, wait a minute. I'm being told the greatest of all time to ever lace him up and put on pads in the history of the National Football League has decided to retire, and here's what I was. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Go ahead and hit it, Mikey.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So I won't be long-winded. Like, you only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
Well done, Tom Brady. Ooh. Well done. Gets emotional in the middle of turning that camera on himself, sitting in the dunes of either Miami, Fort Lauderdale, it looks like up that A1A or whatever. Who knows?
Might be Clyde, though.
Right there in it looks like Florida. And so he decides to retire. And I'm glad he got it out. I'm glad he got it out the way that he wanted. I'm glad that some 80-year-old retiree with some metal detector didn't walk in there and interrupt him, looking for something buried underneath the sand. Might have been odd. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. You're emotionally retiring to your phone. My bad. Look, he's right. It all went down last year, and we said it all last year. But it's worth saying again. No one will ever do what he's done. And when all-time greats in sports retire, you can say that. And deep down, you're like, well, that record might be touched. That record might be touched. That. This one won't. This career will stand the test of time as the greatest of all time. Period. End of story. Tom Brady has, this is it, this is all you got to say, 7 Super Bowl championships, 7 rings. In the same way, Bill Russell, may he rest in peace, we talk about his 11.
Yep.
And that's the first thing that's mentioned when you talk about Bill Russell, 11 championships. Brady's 7. This is not going to be touched by any quarterback ever. I can say this with my full heart and soul. Perfect example is a 27-year-old in Patrick Mahomes getting set to start next week. He's got 1. He's got to win this one and 5 more over the next 15 years. He's got to win half of them, which is what Brady showed you can do it. Sure you can. Sure you can. But you got to play for a long time, and you got to keep it up. Your pace of play, your level of play, your want to, your desire. You got to keep it going. And that's another thing that Brady had. The type of desire and flame that you saw in others and you see in others still today. Serena, Tiger, Michael Jordan. That's the type of guy you have to be. And Mahomes is probably the closest to it right now, I think, that we have in the NFL. And Burrow maybe as well. He's young. 7. And then the remarkable part about it as well with Brady is the longevity. The greatness and the longevity and the fact that he did it at the top of his game for so long. You could legitimately make the case his least successful decade of his career was his first decade. You could make the case that if you break this up into age, 20s, 30s, and 40s, his least successful decade was when he was in his 20s. I'm going to talk about a fine wine. The passing touchdowns alone, as you could see, we have broken it down on our Roku channel page, Roku channel feed for our radio listeners. Keep this up on the screen for a bit here, if you don't mind, Mr. Hoskins. 21,000 passing yards in his 20s, 40,000 in his 30s, 27,000 in his 40s. You take a look at his passing touchdowns, breaking it down by, again, his 20s, 30s, and 40s. And you look at the all-time list, which I have up here. For passing touchdowns, 147 passing touchdowns in his career. That it would rank 99th all-time right now. By the way, tied with Steve Berline. 147 touchdowns. But it's those 3 Super Bowl rings that would separate him, one would say, from Steve Berline, wouldn't it? In those 20s. His 30s. 309 passing touchdowns in his 30s. That is currently ranked 13th all-time in the NFL. One ahead of Russell Wilson, who got a new coach, who happens to be a Super Bowl champion head coach, Sean Payton, who is hiring, we'll talk about on this show, and we would have definitely been leading with if this news didn't pass. And then in his 40s, this is the most remarkable part of them all. 193 touchdowns in his 40s would currently rank 57th all-time, one behind Ken Stabler, Hall of Famer, one ahead of Bob Greasy, Hall of Famer, and one ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Again, who I think is the only guy currently lacing him up with maybe Burrow, with a chance to even come close to this high-rent district, because the only reason why I'm saying maybe is because if you put the stat up one more time, his 40s, these numbers will 1,000,000%. If you think me saying this career will never be touched again, and it will be touched again, and it will be threatened or surpassed, this ain't being touched. As a quarterback in his 40s, he threw for 27,632 yards, and his 193 touchdowns, not only way better than his 20s, but as I mentioned, more in his in the career of Bob Greasy, Sammy Baugh, Otto Graham, Namath. More than Joe Namath's entire career. These are people who he's going to share a room with in Canton forevermore. More than Aikman, more than Norm Van Brocklin, more than Roger Staubach, more than Sid Luckman. Come on. As a 40-year-old. Never be touched again. And don't come at me with Deflategate today. Don't come at me with that nonsense. Should never have happened. Who the hell cares that the PSI of the football was off? Who the hell cares? That was ridiculous. First class, this guy. All the way. All the way. I cannot recall hearing once in my tenure with the NFL. Once. And basically all of Brady's success, with the exception of his first ascendant year of 2001, occurred when NFL Network was born and on the air in 2003. Again, our first 2 Super Bowls as NFL Network came into existence. The last back-to-back championships that we've seen in the NFL, Brady's and Belichick's Patriots of 03-04. Never once have I heard a crossword from any member of the media that was given to them or felt that they were treated that way by Tom Brady. And if he felt that he was short with you, you found out later on from him, I apologize for it. I'm serious. And we in the media love to tear people down sometimes. And the whole Deflategate tore him down, and he didn't forget that. He became a little bit more, in my mind, hard-skinned when it came to dealing with the media, and certainly the NFL. First class all the way. And when he gave his mom and dad a kiss in the tunnel in his final game, that we now know is his final game, and we're all one. Remember when I came on the air, I'm like, well, I don't remember seeing his parents in the tunnel of a football game that he's coming off the field. Maybe that is it. And it turned out to be it. Via con Dios, Tom Brady, congratulations once again. And I, again, in my history of the NFL network, I'm covering it. Nobody has made me late for dinner more than Brett Favre's decision to retire and unretire. And if he decides to do it again, you know what? Awesome. I will have a front row seat for whoever he decides to do it again. But he says it is for good. This does feel different to me because he's been through the whole retiring and unretiring and what it means and what it doesn't mean. And you know, the guy I saw in Munich definitely seemed to be somebody who wasn't the happy warrior that he always appeared to be, and that it's now time in his mind to step away and do his next thing, whether it be fulfilling that television contract that he does have in front of him or something else. Whatever it is, I can't wait to see it, and we'll see him in Canton. And forevermore, his name will be synonymous with greatness, all-time greatness, and in terms of the NFL, the best. When I first came on the air for NFL Network, the GOAT was Rice and Jim Brown. That was the argument, depending on your generation. Jerry Rice or Jim Brown. You asked any player, Mr. Brown or Jerry Rice. That was it. There's a third man in on this conversation, and I didn't certainly think in 2003 it could be this guy or it would be anybody, but it is. And there's a case to be made that Tom Brady is, if we're fortunate enough one day to see a new list show talking about NFL 100 one day, you know, 125 now, whatever, 150, we're fortunate enough to do that. From that NFL 100 list show that I did back in the day, and you want to talk about ranking them, Brady could be number one. And thank you, Tom Brady, for all the stuff you did and that we talked about on NFL Network and all the championships. And I'm not even talking from the point of view that you could, Chris. What a dream come true to root for this guy and win as much as you were able to and have as many duck boat parades you could have, Chris.
Man, it's been awesome.
And it was contagious for the whole damn town.
It was contagious. You know, the run from 2002 when January 2002 all the way through, I guess it would have been February, Mike, all the way through to the Red Sox winning in 2018 here in Los Angeles. I think there was 14 parades for all the teams.
Oh, my goodness.
In like 16 years. 6 New England, 4 Red Sox, and the Celtics, and maybe 12 then. And the Bruins got in on the act. And it's amazing. No player in any sport had ever brought me so much joy. I guess David Ortiz could come close than watching Tom Brady. And it was one of those things, it was like, oh, well, we're going to be in the season would begin in August. You'd be like, oh, well, we're going to be in the AFC Championship game. It's just who are we going to play? Because
it's not arrogance. It's not arrogance.
And it really wasn't arrogant. It was like, oh, well, we're going to win 12 or 13 games, and we have this guy.
Unbelievable.
And then you'd make jokes about, oh, well, we're going undefeated. And then, one year they almost did. And so it's...
Well, they did. It's just, you're adding the playoffs on top of it.
But,
oh, by the way, too...
It's the greatest. He's the greatest ever, and we're never going to see anything like
exactly.
it. And I can't wait to be there in 5 years at Canton, and I hope we're all there, and it's going to be awesome.
No question.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So many.
So thank you for the memories, Tom Brady, and anybody else who hates on him. It's because the memories that you thought you could have had created, he was standing in your way. That's a fact. That's a fact. And again, like I said, high class the whole way through. The number of times that he would do stuff behind the scenes for kids who were sick or whatever, and he didn't want any credit for it, I can personally attest. This guy deserves your praise as he goes to his next stop.